Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson. Welcome to my small but mighty channel. Today, I'm so happy to bring on my beautiful friend. I met her back in 2004. She has turned the world and the information in the science of black holes upside down and inside out for many, many, many years. Not only is she brilliant-minded, Dr. Manjir Samanta-Laughton is a woman. Woo, she's a woman, and she's taken on the masculine, the patriarchy, the shutting down of the science world that was there. We can all say that quite honestly. And this lady has brought forward with a great passion her own brand, and it's called Punk Science. Today, I welcome my beautiful long-term friend, Dr. Manjir Samanta-Laughton. Welcome, beautiful. Welcome.
Thanks, Dani. It's so lovely to be here with you again.
Yeah, so good to see you. I love the punk science. I love the rebelliousness. I love the passion. I love the film that you've been making for some time. Can you tell us where you and I first met and what you were doing at that time?
Gosh, in 2004, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and at the time we were working on the Indigo Kids conference. So I'd come out of medicine. I'd been a doctor. There's a big story about how I ended up leaving, and I just kept hearing about Indigo Kids, and I was like, and then meeting all these really great people to do with it, including our mutual friend. And she knew you from, I think, the local neighborhood, didn't she? And so you came to visit, and we had about 5 minutes together, and then the next day I found myself missing you. And I said, how can I miss somebody who I've known for like 5 minutes? And it was like, I got this voice, it's because you knew her from Lemuria.
Yeah.
And it was so clear. And then when was it that we were hanging out in, did we go to Avebury?
We climbed Silbury Hill. We climbed, yeah, I've done it 6 times. We climbed Silbury Hill, and it was you, me, Kim, and another girl, and you had your dog, the golden retriever, Charlie.
Yeah, I was down at the bottom with my dog. I remember
Right.
that, watching you guys.
Right. And so for those that don't know, Avebury in England is a place where you can actually touch the monolithic stones. There are so many ancient stones in Avebury, and a beautiful village, and even the houses are made out of the ancient stones. It's such a magnificent place. And we went there, and just outside of Avebury is a mound. It's basically Europe's biggest man-made pyramid, and it is a chalk hill with grass, a grass mound. It's called Silbury Hill, and you will never see, to this date, more UFO activity and crop circles than around that vicinity. So I remember the first time I climbed it, yeah, because of Charlie, you couldn't get through the barbed wire. So I really wanted to get to the top first, and I got to the top of Silbury Hill first, and I stood there and I was just breathing in the ambience. And then I'm surrounded by all these women, so many women. They all linked arms, and they were all moving round in a circle, in a big, big circle. And they were saying, fire and thunder, fire and light, fire and thunder, fire and light. I'll never forget that. So I was capturing the echoes of a past incantation, you know, from the indigenous, from the pagans, from the druids, from the whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so that was so fun, that visit, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah, and you're right about all the crop circles and everything. On a different visit, I went to the field opposite, and it had a fresh crop circle in there, and I got, at the time, this is back in, I think, 2002, I got taken up into a spaceship that day, and got given such a pertinent message that I didn't know how pertinent that I needed it the next day to give my friend, that she was going to have to take charge of a conference. And we were thinking at the time, well, why would that happen? Well, yeah, so it's a really, really magical area where there's lots of different layers, aren't there?
Absolutely. And you know, when you stand on Silbury Hill, you know, straight down the way, you can see Marlborough College, which is an ancient manor house, what's left of a manor house, a big church. A very ancient family lived there. They're probably called the Marlboroughs. And on that land, inside the school grounds, there is another mound another mound, and that mound is called Merlin's Mound. And I climbed that too with my friend Michelle, and we got caught, and it wasn't pretty, but we did it. Not encouraging people to go rebelliously and trespassing, etc. But we deserve to know where the sacred sites are, the mounds. No more secrets on our planet. No more secrets.
And there's so many more sacred sites to be discovered all over the world.
Yeah, there really are. There really are, but it's all coming to the surface now. It really is. So I want to get a little into your work and your discovery way back 25, 30 years we're talking now. Is it that long? 25?
It's, in fact, this year, September will be the 20th anniversary of the Black Hole Principle.
Okay, great. Thank you for correcting me there. I had to stop. I'm thinking, hang on, no. Okay, great. 20 years of this discovery. So please share with us, your beautiful work and discovery from self.
Well, just to emphasize that I've, came from a medical background, so I was a medical doctor, but I just was fascinated by cosmology, astrophysics. So I was there, with new scientists, like in my white coat and everything, when I was doing my shifts. And so as you know, I think we've talked about it before, haven't we? There was a huge amount of drama going on around the breakdown of my marriage and things like that, and it ended up with me basically leaving the medical profession and therefore having time on my hands, and it was then that
Can I interrupt you? Please don't lose that thought, but this is so important. Here you are, a medical doctor, you're working with children with brain cancer, you're doing incredible work, and you are having spiritual experiences. You are seeing angelic energy around children who are near death, etc. And you shared with your husband, and he reported you to the medical bar as being a crazy lady. This has been the problem. This is the witch hunt, the problem. So please, just briefly.
So early in my med school, I think the first few weeks, I went to what I thought was a yoga class, and actually it was a Kundalini awakening. And bear in mind, I was a complete skeptic. So if you're a skeptic of anything, I know how that feels. I was a Richard Dawkins fan. I was like really into reductionism. So, if you can't feel it, touch it, measure it, it doesn't exist. And then suddenly the light switches on, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it was like being in touch with everything in the universe all at once with my mind. And you're absolutely right. That's when I started to see angels. And this is going on parallel to my medical life. And this is all happening in London whilst I was studying at a London medical school. So I was away from my family. So they didn't know me as, the spiritually awakened person. So eventually it got to I quite rebelliously got married when I was still in med school. But myself and my husband, although it was a step in my life, we actually started to diverge. I started to go more on the spiritual path. I trained as a bioenergy therapist, and that just that made me galactic. You talk about that a lot on this channel. That's where my galactic consciousness switched on. I started to channel. I started tuning into the Pleiadians, and whilst being a GP, and I kept everything completely separate. So the person at home, my husband, my ex-husband, who I thought I could trust, I was talking about what was happening in my healing clinic and stuff like that, and these amazing like shape-shifting things going on, seeing fairies, seeing all of this sort of stuff. Little did I know he was making notes. And when it came to the end of our marriage, where I just thought we'd gone in two different directions. He was going into the pharmaceutical industry. I was going more into the multi-dimensions, and that's when he decided to tell my parents, and then that I was sort of seeing things and hearing voices and the rest of it. My parents are both doctors. He was a doctor. We all know what that means in the medical profession. And I ended up finding a psychiatrist on my doorstep who was coming to section me. Yes, and so I went through that. and the psychiatrist, they couldn't find anything wrong with me, but they sort of signed me off sick, so that I wasn't a harm to patients. So I couldn't work. In a few short months, I lost my job. I lost my home, I lost my marriage, and effectively lost my family, all in the space of just a few weeks. And so I crawled back to my home that my husband was still living in, because that was my home. That was the only place I had, you know. And so for 6 months, I went through General Medical Council kind of investigations. Couldn't find anything wrong, but they just sort of said, okay, you'll just have to live under a little note on your registration. And I just thought about it for one night, and I kind of went, this is wrong. This is not truth. I'm not ill. I'm spiritual. And so I wrote a letter to the General Medical Council saying, take me off the register. And I struck myself off, basically. And, you know, it sounds terrible. Of course, it was very difficult, but you know what? It just opened up my world. I could finally be in integrity as a multidimensional being, you know. So there wasn't anybody having a problem anymore with the fact that I was like channeling and tuning into different realities and all of that sort of stuff. I can integrate it all. And it's through that tuning into different realities that I got through the theory in 2003 that I call the black hole principle. And but I've spent the last 20 years now getting more and more and more evidence. This is scientific evidence, data from all the telescopes, you know, all this information to show that this is actually the way that a better picture of how the universe works. We're never going to know everything about how the universe works, but this is the next picture.
Brilliant. So a couple of things to those listening out there in Britain. When we say a GP is a medical doctor, but we call them general practitioners. So when Manjir refers to herself being a GP, she was a senior general practitioner at a clinic, at a practice. It is a very much respected medical professional position. Secondly, you mentioned, now you literally named the phrase, the black hole principle. This is your phrase. Now, let's go a little into when you stepped onto the first platform, when you were bringing out your findings, your discoveries, your theories, not just hypotheses. You weren't just postulating, or it wasn't just hyperbole. It was actual scientific proven results that you yourself had studied deeply. Let's talk a little bit about where that began and what happened as soon as you, a woman, no, a woman with brown skin, no, an Indian woman, good Lord, the world's gone mad. Please enlighten us, Manjir, Dr. Manjir.
So actually started with me out on a walk, and I was looking at all these scientific journals, and it was kind of saying that things were, you know, we're taught the black holes are always gobbling things up, and instead the actual data showed that they give off quite a lot of energy and light and things like gamma rays and antimatter and matter. That's the sort of so everything around is like we could call matter, and it's got a kind of mirror particle that's called antimatter, and together they actually cancelled themselves out. So but antimatter is supposedly very, very rare in our universe. It's supposed to have been eliminated in the other universe, but for some reason it's coming out of these like black holes, and so that was kind of weird, like what's happening, why is this stuff coming out of black holes? And I took a break on my walk with my dog, and so suddenly it downloaded, and I realized that they're actually being created by black holes, and that black holes are creative forces of the universe. They kind of give off gamma rays, and then they give off antimatter matter. So what's happening is the light, the gamma ray, is splitting into two, and it forms matter and antimatter, and then it comes together again as light. And that cycle, that breathing process, is going on all the time. 1 minute it goes that way, next minute it goes the other way. And that's why we see these fluctuations in the data. But it's not just supermassive black holes at the heart of galaxies. It's at every single level of the universe, from atoms to stars to planets, all the way down. And in the last 20 years, I've just realized that looking at all the data and everything, that this process is responsible for creation of water on Earth. So that ejection of water, creation of water on, the scientists are finding ejection of water on many of the moons in the solar system, completely unexpected. Well, if you go back to the simple pattern of the black hole principle, you expect this to happen. So the same pattern that's going on in thunderstorms above our heads, the thunderstorms are basically mini black holes, is going on throughout the whole universe. So the gamma ray burst, the water, the electrons, that when it's above our heads, we call it lightning. So you see this same pattern. The thunderstorm is a really great example of a miniature black hole and the patterns that we see there. So it's happening all over the cosmos. So that's why it's called the black hole principle, because it's the same principle. And so the biggest body of water we've ever found is out in space, coming out of a black hole. So I know people, it's just amazing, but black holes actually produce water, and so do stars. Our own sun produces water from sunspots. So sunspots and stars are just basically black holes on black holes. It's a fractal pattern that goes all the way down.
Just so fascinating. With the sun, of course, we are told, and this is a thing for me, I wish the whole planet, those that have questions, those that just accept what they're told without thinking or, studying or reading old books or just thinking, just imagining, does that make sense to me? Do I just need to roll over and accept it? When we talk about the sun and we're told it's this hot, it is deflecting this much heat and radiation, etc. We only know that because we are told that. What about the theory that the sun is actually not emitting burning hot frequencies, that it's actually cold fusion? And when the rays of the sun hit the ionosphere, the thermosphere, the Earth's atmosphere, then there is a combustible heat resonance, thermal dynamics that then heat this planet. What do you think about that?
Well, a few years ago, there was these headlines that said, we've got the chemistry of the sun completely wrong, back to the drawing board. And if we don't know that, we don't know anything. But these things get quietly shoved away.
Oh, yes.
When nobody talks about it anymore. The WMAP data, which is the background microwave radiation, that, they mapped it all out. They go, this is the signature of the Big Bang. And then everybody started to find all these funny patterns in it, and patterns that are associated with structures that are around now. And it's like, well, why should that be? It should be something 15 billion years ago. Well, no, it's fine. Well, guess what? Microwaves come out of black holes. So they're actually being created now. And I think, emotionally, we'd like to think of the universe, everything exciting has happened. But no, it's a dynamic universe that's creating at every single level. We are creating from, the reason why we can't see this happening is because the light that I was talking about is actually coming from the center of the black hole, which is beyond what we call the speed of light. So we think the speed of light is a limit of the universe when it's not. Mm-hmm. It's the limit of how fast matter can go. Okay, so matter cannot catch up to a photon. It cannot go faster than the speed of light. But there's a lot of other different realms, different dimensions, like string theorists and people like that talk about, that are beyond the speed of light. And so that's not matter. That's different forms of light that's not got charge, that's not got mass. So nothing with mass can go faster than the speed of light because it becomes infinitely heavy. But if we look at light, well, what's that doing? So different forms of light. So once we realize that the speed of light is not the speed limit of the universe, literally different worlds start to open up. And that is where all these amazing downloads of fast radio bursts and things like that, really, really powerful discharges that are periodically coming out. Strangely, people think that I'm all about the woo-woo, but actually I'm about the simplicity. I don't think fast radio bursts are little green men. like the astrophysicists say.
No one's ever seen a little green man. It's a nonsense.
Exactly. It's not little green men. They think it might be aliens. So I'm the one that comes along going, no, that's not an alien. That's a black hole principle. It's simple, elegant, and you don't need any special circumstances to have fast radio bursts happening and all these different discharges that are happening all around the universe. For example, Pluto. We have just discovered recently that Pluto has icy volcanoes. Now, we think of volcanoes obviously are really hot, and because that's what happens on this planet. And so icy volcanoes on Pluto were kind of a surprise. But if you know, the center of all planets are basically little black holes that are producing ejections of water, matter, antimatter, light, gamma rays, you can start to understand, oh, that's why the moon has flashing lights on it that people have spotted for decades and decades. And that's why Pluto has ejections of water that become icy volcanoes. It's this, once you know the simple, elegant pattern, you don't need the little green man. So ironically, even though I'm multidimensional, I'm coming along and saying, hey, you know, you don't need the fluff, you don't need to speculate. This is simple, elegant, and quietly powerful. You don't need explosions and violence to create power in the universe. It's coming from source. It's coming from infinite source. And so all the, I mean, this is where you talk about, you know, being a woman and stuff like that. I don't know if it's that much, but I've noticed that a lot of astrophysics is very violent. You know, something explodes, neutron stars are colliding, and this, that, and the other. The idea that something effortlessly is powerful is not something that we really see in our society, which is patriarchal. You know, but I have to say, Dani, I have very, very few times had anybody show me resistance to my face, at least, for being a woman of color, talking about these things, because it seems that once they start talking about it, it just doesn't matter. It's just transcendent.
You know, I remember in the early days, there were a few gangbangers out there coming for you, because their theories were, you know, their papers had been written, they had been peer reviewed, they were in the most, you know, amazing journals, and then along comes this little whippersnapper, you know, no, you did go through a lot of abuse. I remember from 2004, but you've done the work, and you're graceful, and you know, you're just, but, and again, you know,
it's been a small amount out of everything.
Right. But again, you've kept on going and going, and that's what we need to do. We need to keep on going. Now, in terms of a point you made was so beautiful. Once we cross the event horizon, or once we understand that, you know, the speed of light, it goes beyond, as you beautifully explained. These are the limits that are put on us humans. This is the limit of the education that we are allowed to know. And we think we know it all. And all we do is then espouse, repeat what historically we've been told. Now, in a nutshell, I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but you're talking about light in different areas and levels of light. Could you share with us positron, electron, and photon? Just a brief synopsis of each one, please.
Yeah, sure. So basically, as things come from infinity, and they're basically, if you think of the center of the black hole as infinite, and you can see that light is basically spiraling through the dimensions, coming to the edge of our reality, which we call the speed of light. I've renamed it the perception horizon, because it's just a limitation of our normal perceptions.
Genius.
People can actually perceive beyond it as well. We call them psychics. You know, so the light comes through that edge, and then it splits into matter and antimatter. We'll call it, we'll just use the example, there's lots of different particles of matter and antimatter, but we'll just talk about electrons and positrons, because that's often seen around black holes. And then basically they combine again, forming a particle of light, often in the form of a gamma ray burst. So that kind of cycling, that kind of breathing is going on around black holes, and it's around it, that same pattern, that same fundamental pattern is happening at every level of the universe. So that's the matter forms the world that the matter part of that forms a world that we know about, the meta world that we're familiar with.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Would you say that, again, what we're doing, you and I, is you've shared that you've gone full circle, basically, for all the spiritual realms and dimensions, and, knowing that there is more to this physical realm than we were initially proven. And now you're in this very firm place of holding true to your own scientific proven discoveries, and where there's a separation between science, science is over there's two governing bodies, religion and science. These are the two governing bodies that we were told we have to adhere to. Well, no more, because we're now beginning to think for ourselves. So you've done all the spirituality, all of that work, come back full circle, and now you are standing strong and delivering for the science-minded that need a way to understand the reality of their terraformed planet. These are some of the aspects of that terraforming. Would that be a better way of maybe suggesting that theory?
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, it's like I started out years ago really looking to explain bioenergy healing to doctors because I was seeing the effects that it was having, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could use this in adjunct to conventional medicine? And like you were saying, I was doing pediatric medicine, looking after children, very sick children with cancer, that sort of thing. And I was kind of looking at the, beautiful young body of a little 3-year-old and going, how beautiful is he? And he's so angelic, and thinking, we're about to subject him to a lot of horrible cancer treatments. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could just not throw the conventional medicine out, but use bioenergy as in addition to what we've been using before? And so that's really kind of where I started out, to try and explain physics and things to doctors. And maybe we can, just simple things like quantum physics and non-locality, because doctors don't know any of this stuff. And, sort of explain and go, well, maybe that's the explanation for distant healing and that kind of thing. Where it's got to is now full circle, like you say. I've gone from going all the way through it, and I've had a very blessed and successful career. I've spoken at universities all around the world. I've been to New Zealand, Japan, Greece, Italy. I've spoken everywhere, and the United States many, many times. And so I've been invited to speak all around the world, and I've spoken at many, many conferences, and we've just been welcomed with open arms. It's been wonderful. But it got to the point where I was going, okay, there's something more. And I went and did that, the cycle again, down underground, to try and find the next phase, next cycle. And I started to make huge discoveries. Like I was just watching a documentary about the Gulf of Mexico and the crater that's there. And I started to realize, hang on a minute, it's supposed to be from an asteroid, but there's material around the edge of the crater that's supposed to be from the center of the Earth. And I thought, that's not from an asteroid, that's upwelling, not down. And when I realized that, I thought, what's in the Gulf of Mexico? It's oil. I went, could it be that oil is coming from the black hole at the center of the Earth, just like water is? So the oceans of the Earth are coming from the central black hole in the Earth. I thought maybe oil, coal, methane, what we call fossil fuels, is coming from the center of the Earth. I thought, if I'm right, then there's oil, coal, and methane all over space. And so I started to look, and indeed found it. I mean, there's coal even on Mars. There's keratin, crude oil, being found on Mars. There's Titan, which is one of the moons of Saturn, has more oil than Earth. So Mars, we've got probes on Mars, so we're finding lots of stuff there. Did you know it has methane ejections, like that go periodically according to whether it's day or night on Mars? So you've got that same kind of breathing ejection. The way that we see the black hole principles often as bipolar jets that are periodically coming out as jets. So we have jets of methane on Mars, just like we have jets of methane on the Earth as well. And we have, geysers and things like that. These are all expressions of the black hole principle. So it's this one unifying theory that we can see happening on Earth, in thunderstorms, on Mars, on Pluto, and it's all the same. Once you know that underlying theory, then you can make predictions like ice volcanoes and things like that. But what's so wild is, of course, now we have to face up to, well, if there's tons of oil on Titan and there's no plankton there, if there's even coal being found on stars. And last time I looked, there aren't any trees on stars. So to create the coal, we've been told the story that the coal is created by these swamps that start to crush over millions of years, and that forms the coal and blah, blah, blah. Well, if that's the case, then why are we finding coal coming out of stars? And coal is also on comets and things like that. So what's going on there? And so basically, this is another expression of the black hole principle. There's a physicist called Thomas Gold who did a lot of amazing work about 20 years ago, looking at how coal, oil, and methane are actually upwelling. So he did an awful lot of great work there, and he looked at all the fields around the world and how that pattern is there. So that's another expression of the black hole principle. So these things that we call fossil fuels have never been proved to be fossils. Never. And the Russian scientists have been saying this for quite a long time. So that's another expression of the black hole principle. So once we realize that we are living on a creative, dynamic, amazing planet that has given to us the tools, not just water so that we can survive, but also what we call fossil fuels to enable our acceleration of growth. It doesn't mean that we continue to use these things because they're problematic in themselves, but I mean, it gives you a different feeling, doesn't it, from fighting the planet and fighting ourselves to realizing, my goodness, this being that we call Earth has given us this amazing gift, to help our acceleration, to help our growth. We can move on from using these things, but isn't that amazing?
It's so beautiful. It's a wonderful quantum dance, a universal dance of reality. And whichever mind style that we decide to take, whether it's working with angelics, whether it's being with our galactic brothers and sisters, whether it's focusing purely on a scientific narrative, we are getting there. And this is also, for me, the opening of the soul. And in terms of the soul and the beautiful energy systems in the body, I feel there is a direct link to our chakra energy systems and to the creation of black holes. Could you go into a little bit of that theory, please?
Absolutely. And I love, I mean, I've got to say that we're working on this project, and I've been wondering why it's been held back a bit, and we're making punk science into a movie, and I think this is one of the reasons. And in the footage that we've got, we have Danielle doing this beautiful link of what chakras are. And so I also realized that chakras and black holes, it's a pattern that goes all the way down. And what are chakras? There are these spinning energy fields that are not in this dimension. You can't dissect a cadaver and find a chakra, but they've been photographed and sensed throughout for thousands of years. I mean, not photographed, but they've been sensed for thousands of years, and they've recently been photographed by scientists. So what are they? They are also the creative points of the body. These are on the multidimensional levels. This is bringing in from that infinity into below the speed of light and creating the antimatter and matter. And Professor Valerie Hunt the late Professor Valerie Hunt of UCLA actually did some measurements across the chakras and found that they had some piezoelectric currents across the chakras. So she was actually able to measure that. She did a lot of amazing work. But that's one of the things that, so we know that we can pick up these fields across chakras. But it's not just about chakras, it's also all the way down. Quarks even have bipolar jets. The same pattern that's going all the way from a supermassive black hole out there in the middle of a galaxy to a quark, real subatomic levels. We're seeing the same sort of pattern, and all the way in between as well. We see bipolar jets coming. I mean, our Earth has bipolar jets that give off. We call them the northern and southern lights. These are the same patterns. So it's simple, it's elegant, and once you see the simplicity of it, we can move into a new era, which is not about lack, and it's all about connectivity. And it's not about everything has happened billions of years ago. Everything has been created at every level and every moment.
This is so extraordinarily exciting to me, again, to balance or bring in multidimensional, galactic, historical, scientific, metaphysical, quantum mechanical structures, thoughts, and theories all collapsing in together, which I truly see happening on our planet right now. When we talk about the chakras, of course, many people get switched off because they don't understand what a chakra is. I love that you shared so beautifully and truthfully that the chakras in our body, the circular, as known as energy centers, cannot be found physically. They're metaphysical aspects of us. I believe the chakra system is what anchors our soul into the body. That is my own personal belief. It anchors the soul into the body because we are of the source that you mentioned. Some people call it God, the gods. Anyway, that's again something that when we get to that level, because of our hardwire programming, people then want to kill you, crucify you, murder you, maim you, slander you, because they have reached their full perception level of their training, their education, and what they have been frightened into thinking and believing. And this is where we are now, inviting everyone to be their own beautiful chakra, breathing in and out like the universe does. Was it contract and expand? Contract and expand. I wrote down, you mentioned piezoelectricity, which again is so beautiful when people are understanding who am I, what am I, that the electricity, the resonance of electricity found in the pineal gland is the piezoelectricity, which does harness and follow through each of the individual chakras in our beautiful organic biome. It's so exciting. So we can somehow on some level compare ourselves also to a black hole. What say you to that?
Yeah, I think that's if you look at the geometry of a galaxy, you can see the spiral Fibonacci sort of geometry, and you can see that going throughout weather systems. For example, tornadoes and hurricanes, typhoons, that sort of thing. I was the only person to predict that you could find gamma ray bursts and antimatter in hurricanes, and scientists found them in 2018. So once you know the simple theory, and that also goes for our own body. If the famous what's it called, Vitruvian Man, why is that so amazing to look at? Because it's showing the Fibonacci geometry of our own bodies. So if you center the central black hole in the heart, I have a partner called James, and he has seen in visions that the main soul site is actually in the heart, and he's seen this sort of beautiful liquid mirror with all these lights and sort of looking a bit like liquid mercury kind of thing. And so that's the sort of central soul point and the central black hole of the body, as it were, and then it creates this spiral geometry, which you kind of see in the heart as well. You see this kind of spiral coming out of the heart. So that's the central point, and then we sort of go, so the same pattern going all the way down.
Yeah, it's so thrilling. And if we could just take a moment, I encourage people just to stop this broadcast and just take in what Manjir is saying, and explaining. One of the talents that you have, which is largely missing, I think, in what we would call the scientific community, and they create their own barriers by, you know, pontificating and hypothesizing and using language that is just beyond the regular person with a regular education that hasn't chosen to go into a scientific subject. It's grossly unfair. I call it the academic snobbery. And those barriers need to just collapse down, because we're keeping people separated. Because when someone's trying to understand something scientific, black hole, let's say your black hole principle that you created, this is yours, Dr. Manjir, Samanta-Laughton, and yours alone, that people that would want to go there or into another theory, quantum theory, they get lost, and then their own individual life story, their emotional intelligence, their psychological situation blocks them. They don't think they're worthy, they're never going to get it. You know, that has been a plan to make a separation, to keep the humans dumbed down. But someone like you, you know, a science-minded leader like you, who has come with these theories and provability, which is very important in science, you're just a joy. You know, you're a joy. Can you please share with us, how can people find your work? How can we look you up? How can we see what you've done over these last 20 years?
I have a website, punkscience.com. You can discover more about the forthcoming movie there. Also connect with me. I do multidimensional sessions with people as well, go into the dimensions of who somebody is. You know, so the same abilities that I can bring the science through allow me to see someone at a larger level, as it were. And we also have the Conscious Science Club, where we meet on a monthly basis. So, you know, head over to punkscience.com and it's all there. Online courses, Simply Divine, where I go into all of the you know, the science of chakras, a lot of stuff that we talk about and more. And I think you're so right about the science. And haven't we seen that in the last few years, just how corrupt the system has become?
Yes.
And it's no longer about the spirit of inquiry. That's why this is punk, because it has to come from the grassroots now. No longer about those institutions, they've lost it. You know, I just saw this graph about how little disruptive science is done. The graph has gone like this and this and this. And the more that you get these people who are paying the institutions, the universities, to do their bidding now, the less that we're getting the really big ideas, the disruptive ideas. It has to come from punk sources now, because it can't come from within anymore. It's dead. You know, they're just doing iterations of little ideas and little ideas. That's all they're getting funding from. And if they do anything that's outside the lines, their funding is threatened. I definitely met even a quite famous scientist who actually, I won't mention his name, but he actually did say in a talk that he did something a bit out of the lines, and he was threatened too. And he's now very well known. So even people who are very mainstream have been threatened. So how can you move forward? That's why it's punk. It has to come from without, you know, and that's what's happening. It's grassroots. And boy, have we been shown that in the last few years, just how corrupt science has become.
Definitely.
So,
science
that's
at all
a whole
levels.
other story.
It is a whole other story. Another example on a medical side, I used to have, as you know, my clinic when I was on television in Britain, as you can obviously confirm, because there's no, I mean, I was on TV in Britain and whatever, on this wonderful channel, and I had my clinic at Harley Street in London. And one time a doctor came to me for me to help him with clinical hypnotherapy, and he was very, very much holding a PTSD symptomology, because he had discovered how to, when a man has a prostate cancer, and my ex-husband went through this, the way that you would take a biopsy of the prostate gland, which is up the anus of the man, was to insert a machine, something like a stapler. And my ex-husband went through this agony. And many men have gone through this trauma. And again, there are
Mm.
so many things. We don't need to put the trauma, people, humans through such trauma, because we have such medications and wonderful scientific breakthroughs. Anyway, this man, this Dr. Richard is all I'll say. His name is Dr. Richard, beautiful man. This is like 15 years ago when I had my clinic in Harley Street. And he came and he said to me, he discovered a way to harness the cells in the urine of men who had a low PSA or a high PSA, which basically gives off the, the knowledge that there's something up with the prostate. And his funding was blocked. It was blocked because another doctor in Ghana had a bigger deal and was blah, blah, blah. So there is corruption everywhere. These men who've gone through the stapler in the anus to take a biopsy of their prostate, I have such sympathy, terrible sympathy, like chronic sympathy, having seen, like I said, my ex-husband go through it. But yeah, corruption. And this is why we need people like you, the rebellious, the punk element, the passion for love and life and justice and creativity in all of us. That's what, punk science is it not?
Yeah, we've got to push through the crap because there's so much crap out there, and it just, it's just got so bad, like the corruption, like you're saying, and the money, the vested interest. There's a whole load of scientists, like actual physicists, who want to say that the Big Bang was wrong. They've been saying this for years. The Big Bang is suffocating. The idea of the Big Bang is suffocating scientific exploration. But if you say that in public, you won't get the funding. So, this is where we got to science. And now we need to just cut across and say it's about the truth of the universe rather than who's giving the money. And that's why it's going to come from outside now.
Yeah, beautiful. This movie that you've been making for some time, you have some of because obviously I've seen a lot of the footage over the years, some of the most incredibly exciting science minds, real characters, real big personalities who've just proven so many beautiful, wonderful, realities in this, this planet that we're on. Not to put you under pressure of time, but when do you think we might be able to get a taste of the punk science movie?
Well, it's really interesting because it has been held back, and I think that so in terms of funding, and I think the reason why that's been, now I'm seeing a bigger picture, is because we really needed to see this angle about water. So I've been in touch with some people who are actually using the detection gamma rays and things like that in order to find wells on the planet. So the water authorities don't believe that Earth generates its own water. They don't understand that. They think it's coming from the rain and it's trickling down and it's going to a water table, and all that stuff we were taught in school, which is, by the way, not right, not correct. And they don't understand that the Earth is generating its own water, and that is a pure water that's different from the rainfall water. And that is what's really creating water on this planet. Nobody on this planet needs to be without water. So once you put their discoveries together with the fact that I have looked at the science of water throughout space and realized that every single body is capable of generating its own water, from comets to Pluto to black holes to even stars. So if you want to Google stars create water bullets, you'll see what I mean. Just Google that, you'll find a really interesting story. So every single level is capable of creating water. Once you put the space side with the fact that there's scientists on the ground actually creating wells in Africa and elsewhere. There's an Austrian who lived in California for a while in the last century. He found 800 wells. And the state of California is quite happy to take the water off him, but they didn't believe him when he said the Earth was generating its own water. So once we understand that, we can start to relieve some of the intellectual barriers, as it were, to giving everybody on the planet, for everything from fuel to water. Because it's generated by, if we understand that the center of the Earth is a black hole, and that's generating all of these things, we can move forward to distributing it better. But why there's other barriers to it as well. But understanding why climate change is happening. that's another thing. It's we've just sold this story, when how can you understand climate change when you don't understand that hurricanes have got gamma ray bursts in them? Have got antimatter in them. How can you understand them when you don't understand thunderstorms? Children in school are told that thunderstorms are created by that lightning is created by static electricity in clouds. I mean, what utter nonsense. It just that we've disproven that, actually, but children are still told that. So we need to move on. We need to get better ideas for our planet. So yeah, this is this is like where the punk comes from, and moving across that. So yeah, that we want to get all this into the movie. So we're going to do some. We've got funding that's coming in the next few weeks to do a few more shoots, just to put in the gaps, because we've got Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, people like Bernard Carr, Professor Bernard Carr, who was Stephen Hawking's student. He's spoken. We've got the wonderful Daniel Henderson, and we've got
Lynn McTaggart.
We've got Lynn McTaggart. We've got so many people from we've got Elizabeth Rocha, we got Bill Tiller, so he's since passed away, so we managed to get a wonderful interview with him, and we've got all these amazing people that we brought together, and so we want to add that element of the water science, and getting those professors who are talking about the earth generated water to actually what's out in space as well, the kerogen on Mars, the methane gas, the icy volcanoes on Pluto, all that sort of stuff, bringing it all together to create a new paradigm. I mean, my website is also talks about paradigm revolution. This is a new paradigm of how to understand the universe and ourselves.
Absolutely. I love it. And again, it's helping to blend the people who think they're in one camp or one truth or environment to open their minds more to science needs to change. Science needs to flower. All of the snobbery needs to collapse into itself, so we all get a bigger picture for our individual selves to really figure out, what do I think? Where is my planet? How did she form? What is this? Where are we going with this beautiful future and this ascension that we are in right now that will not be stopped? My darling Dr. Manjir Samanta-Laughton, I love you. I'm so proud to bring you on the Small But Mighty channel again. And I know that you just bring so much thought-provoking, energy with you. Let me come to you for final words.
Oh, gosh. I mean, we're feeling so I mean, I love you too. I think the ultimate reality, though, is love. And that is what our planet has given us, our universe is giving us, and that is the ultimate reality. And I know it's tough when things are happening, but ultimately this is about a higher love that is suffusing everything, and let's feel that in our lives.
Yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. Okay, thank you so much, darling, as I will see you soon. And to the viewers out there, thank you so much for being here today. It is Saturday, the 21st of January, 2023. Welcome you, like I said, to go back, to take notes, to think about the things that Dr. Manjir is sharing here, which again will allow you your own individual mapping of self, of atmospheric values, of the earth, of space, of what you think as an individual, because we are here to expand our brains and really think about, what do I think about this planet, rather than just be told this is this and this is that, and not to use our beautiful brains. Anyway, so to you guys out there, I send you my love, and I will see you soon.
Oh, you're recording as well, yeah?
Yeah, my cursor is being very naughty, and I have now lost control of it. Yeah, so this happens, unfortunately. It's very dull. So I can't even roll it down. I can't even pause this. So I am just going to have to, here we go. Here we go, rock and roll. Paused, I think. Oh, no, it's still recording. Oh, no, it's recorded. Okay, we need to say tatty bye. Yes. What's happening?
Good.
Honestly, I can't tell.
Let me know. Let me know if you need my version of it. Okay.
Definitely, definitely. All
Cool.
right, darling. I'm going to put it out ASAP. Send me your links, all your links now. Send me a different photograph from the last one that we used. And well
Okay.
done. That was brilliant. Mwah. Love you so much.
Thank you.
Be in the chat. I'll
Okay.
text you in a minute.
Okay, cool.
All right, darling.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you, love you.